Professor Lady here. I wanted to recommend a couple of videos today that touch on the consciousness and spirituality aspect of the UAP NHI phenomenon. James Hodgkins on Post-Disclosure World. So James is a psionic asset who talks about in this particular video, and I think that he has appeared on other podcasts as well, about his work as a psionic asset. And there aren't many people coming forward who are saying that they're on these psionics teams. So this makes this particular appearance, I think, very well worth the watch. And James is very down to earth and speaks clearly and is engaging. And he talks about his work with Jake Barber, his history of telepathy, of getting involved in the psionics aspect, even his education, his interests. And he talks about how the objects, not objects, but things that he has been involved in calling in have essentially told him that they are from our afterlife, is how they would describe it. So this brings us once again to the incredible interdimensional, ultradimensional, spiritual aspect of this whole phenomenon. And he literally is telling us that that's how they describe where they're coming from, right? And we have Jake Barber having this incredible spiritual experience, connecting with the craft that he did connect with. And so we cannot get away from this aspect of the phenomenon. And we used to call them UFOs, unidentified flying objects. This is way more than objects, guys. Definitely. And we've got to go down these rabbit holes about consciousness, spiritual realms, interdimensional realms, multidimensional realms, every dimension you can think of, because this is extremely complicated phenomena, extremely complicated. But I do like the basic concept that a lot of these guys are talking about, which is you must call them down with love, with positivity, the higher vibrations. It's not that there aren't those who have some self-interests and some biological aspect to them, although we keep being told it is probably more of a lab-grown meat clone type entity without a consciousness that is in some of the more physical objects, right? But that, you know, there are different things out there with different intentions, some selfish intentions, I don't know. And of course, we have to be careful. I do believe it's like a Ouija board. You've got to be careful what you call in, people, psionics, because, all right, if you're presenting with love and happiness and positivity, great. What if someone on your team's having a bad day and they call in, whoever? So I highly recommend that video. All right. Then there is the long video of Jake Barber on Jesse Michaels. And he again is talking about the positive spiritual entities that his team is bringing on, which I think James is involved with. And he talks about how he's seen this angel-like entity over his house. So some things are coming home, and it's a good thing they're positive, because you don't want, poltergeist in your house, for sure, coming back with these objects that they're calling down. I always find Jake Barber absolutely riveting and fascinating, and I 100% still feel he's the real deal. That leads me to Stephen Greer's interview with Danny Reed, a great one. It's been out for a few weeks, but he says Jake Barber's absolutely the real deal. He knows him. And Stephen Greer, who can be controversial to a certain extent, I think, is just full of amazing knowledge. And he too talks about the consciousness aspect, of course, because he's the founder of the CE5 protocol. But he talks about how he started out as a meditator and into consciousness, experienced some kind of NHI, UAP when he was younger, and how his whole trajectory of getting involved in the subject evolved, which is interesting. But one of the most interesting aspects of that interview is something that keeps popping up, and that's that a lot of experiencers have also been near-death experiencers. There was a really good book called The Omega Project that was written, I think, in the late 80s or 90s, early 90s. But the book talks about, and I'm seeing more and more of this, that a lot of people with these NHI experiencers have had out-of-body near-death experiences as well. So it seems that either they are already open to these kinds of experiences, or one is kind of connecting to another. So they're getting further opened up to other realms, other dimensions, making it easier for them to maybe slip into those realms with other experiences. So this NDE UAP NHI connection is definitely worth continuing to study. Stephen Greer interview, fascinating. He also talks about, so when we're talking about the psionics teams, he talks about this kind of disturbing incident, which I had mentioned before, Michael Herrera, who came upon something that looked like a human UAP, human-built unusual craft, which are out there. Stephen Greer is very adamant that a lot of the far-out objects and things that we're seeing in the sky are human-made. He's very a great proponent of that, which I find an interesting aspect, more so than maybe some others. But he talks about this incident where some Marines not only saw the ship, but they saw a crate too, and the whole idea that there was actually human beings in it, and they were being recruited for psionics teams, but they were people from developing areas, from rural areas, facing disasters or economic strife or desperate, circumstances, who didn't exactly have so much choice in participating, which is very disturbing. So there is some kind of rogue psionics operations. Oh my gosh, this gets too weird. But, if it's happening, that's not good. That's not okay. So, like, people being pressured from other cultures to participate in this. And Stephen Greer goes one step further and says that these people are being hooked up to machines and trained, and it can damage their health, even kill them. So the psionic stuff doesn't seem like all love and light. We have to understand where this has been used, how it's being used. This is why things have to come to light that have been hidden by the government and by, not government, but rogue elements and secret projects, secret access, restricted access, whatever you want to call it, because there's going to be disturbing things that come out of this, okay? Long-term disclosure, and that's why some of these folks are talking about amnesty for those who come forward, because they've seen a lot. Some of them have done bad things from the rogue organizations. And, okay, so definitely check out Stephen Greer on Danny Reed, and Whitley Strieber, who I mentioned, also talking about our role in letting UAP and NHI into our reality, and the role of our consciousness in letting them in. Finally, I want to tell you to look out for the next documentary, big one, called Age of Disclosure, coming out in a few weeks. Jay Stratton is the central character of that. He has been involved in Arrow, ATIP type operations, disclosure, investigations, government investigations, operations. He's spilling the beans about a lot of stuff. And I think he had a spiritual experience in an interaction with NHI, UAP as well. I think it is debuting at the South by Southwest Festival, but look for that. Once it comes out, we will definitely talk about that. All right, so that's all for today. There's hundreds of rabbit holes to go down with the consciousness spirituality aspect of all of this. And I want to hear your thoughts about either these specific interviews I mentioned, one of the rabbit holes of consciousness, spirituality, what you're thinking about all of this, okay? And as always, you can check out my other videos where, these interviews are long, folks, on these podcasts. They're some of them are 3 hours long. So you could get the cliff notes from me. And these podcasters always break down the great moments into smaller videos, but you could start out with the cliff notes from me. But those are my recommendations for the week. And I think we're going to keep talking about the consciousness, spirituality element, because this is critical to humanity. This is critical at this point. This is beyond belief, guys. Okay? That's all for now. Bye.